Hello everyone. My name is Gail Herman, and I'm going to be sharing with you today in the integrated arts area a way to use what I call the rondo strategy, and it's basically an Orff Schuhwerk technique. But instead of using just music, we've kind of adapted it to be used in the classroom for class discussions, sharing, and also even to teach through students making their own contributions to the chant or to the theme. The next one that I'm going to do is about rocks. Now, when I taught second grade, my students were so crazy about rocks. And luckily it was in our science curriculum. And we lived in New Jersey at the time. And there were a lot of rocks, granite, sometimes quartz, you could find mica, obsidian. So I had a wonderful collection of rocks that I had gotten. And I put them down in the center of a group. Oh, and by the way, this one that I'm telling you now was the very first time I ever tried the rondo. So in order to make it work for me, because I wasn't quite sure if I could do it with the whole class yet, I had that day invited a parent to come in and do some reading of a story. Then I just tapped random students. I said something like, come with me and you shall see what kind of rock you will be. Something like that. And I tapped 10 students and brought them out into the hallway, which we were allowed to use as long as nobody was walking through it. And I did the rondo. Rocks, rocks, rocks can't talk. Rocks, rocks, rocks can't walk. Then I picked up my rock, my favorite, obsidian, and I said, I am a rock. I can't walk and I can't talk, but I'm shiny, shiny black. And I have sharp edges sometimes. And if you hold me up to the light, you can't see through me. I'm not transparent. And then I tried to scrape some off and I said, can't scrape. It's hard. I'm hard. I tried to personify. So then each student got to choose a rock, one of their favorites, and most of them already had one. And they knew some of the things that we do about rocks. One of them is we look, we notice the color, we notice the texture. Mine was sharp on some edges and very smooth. What kind of a shine does it have when the light hits it? What happens when you scratch it? What about water? Does it float or not? And does it break into small pieces? We didn't use a hammer, but you could. I mean, many kindergarten classrooms have hammers and all kinds of things like that. So what then followed was each child reviewing what we do as scientists to really get to know an object, whether it's a cell under a microscope or something you can hold in your hand. They reviewed that by taking a few minutes and figuring out what their favorite rock was. Was it opaque, transparent? Was it, and then we did the rondos again. And it was just a simple, silly rocks, rocks, rocks can't talk. Rocks, rocks, rocks can't walk. My rock, or sometimes they would personify, can't walk and talk, but it is so beautiful when you hold it up to the light. You can see right through it. And it has some sides, like if it was quartz, a quartz crystal, the sides are very smooth on the side and very kind of sharp on the edges there. At least that was the one I remember from one of my students. So the rock rondo was a big success with that group of students. And then they would go back and they would fill out some kind of, a little form that we had that would show them, or that would record different rocks that they observed. Now, so this is all, that really relates to the scientific method, because that's the first step, is we really have to know, do we know our subject? Now the next the next rondo I want to share with you is the one I did for insects. Insects. When I taught first grade, insects were a big hit. The butterflies in the classroom in the fall, and insects in the spring. So I did the one that I kind of just made it up. Come with me and you shall see what kind of insect you will be. Then I stood up to model it. I was the bee section. So I stood up then after we all did the rondo, and I moved my arms like this and said, I am an insect. I have 3 body parts. I have antennae. I have transparent wings, 2 sets. And I have 6 arms and legs. I love to go on your food at picnics. Who am I? And then they would guess, what they thought I was. And of course, for me, I was a fly, but they named other insects like mosquitoes that often would plop on their food, and some of that fits. We examined them and saw how much of that would fit. So each student then got a chance, because they had studied particular insects. They were kind of experts about bumblebees, or experts about ladybugs. Some of them had ladybugs coming into their house in this spring, I think it was. And so we just kept doing the rondo. Come with me and you shall see what kind of insect you will be. In between each one of their kind of riddle, it was really, they were creating a riddle for what kind of insect. They always had to use their body to demonstrate, and they always, had to say, who am I, or what am I? Now, I should mention that one of the things that I found helpful is, if you're beginning the rondo form, you might want to do it with half the class at once in the beginning. Divide them up, have the others do something else. And if you're not sure it will really take with the students, what really works is removing the ones you're going to work with to another room or another special space, and say, we're going to do something special today, and I'll start with this group, whichever group you, because it kind of builds expectation. And what we're talking about here is enjoyment, enthusiasm, engagement. What Joe Renzulli talks about as needed so badly in the schools, all schools, and especially for gifted and creative and talented students. The last one that I think I've got time for is one where we studied body, the organs of our bodies. And so the students in this group, like 2 of them might have studied lungs or kidneys or the digestive system, maybe the esophagus or the stomach. So when we did this, they really had done a lot of reading ahead of time. So the one that I did is a little song and just to gather the students together. What's inside of me? What's inside of me? My skin's outside, but what's inside? Oh, what's inside of me? And that was sung over and over as the theme, which the rondo always has a theme that's repeated. Then the individual contribution, the B's, the C's, the D's, the B, C, D, E, add on infinitum, however many times you want to do it in one sitting. Those were the students' contributions. So instead of being really restless because one student was not only an expert in, let's say, the workings of the kidneys, but really knew probably more than most of us because that was his interest, that was his passion. I remember this very, very well. When we did the rondo, they sat and listened to him very calmly because they knew in a minute we were going to do what's inside of me, what's inside of me, my skin's outside, but what's inside, oh, what's inside of me. And if you want to add something extra, by all means, you can have a tempo block and maybe a little chime or something that has a little bit of pitch, not much, because I would just one would be good, a triangle. And then that could be passed around also. But I usually don't use instruments for these teaching sharing sessions. I usually am more just doing it with the voice and the clapping and the patching on the side and the snapping or any movement at all that you want to add. So those are about 7 rondos that I've used in teaching. Please share rondos that you've used. These are just simple. You might have a ton of them as well. We'll make a big collection and share them with everybody. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again at some time in the future, maybe at the University of Connecticut at Confertube. Thank you very much. Bye.